What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved comedians faces a host who knows no boundaries? This confrontation on The View went down in television history as a moment that shocked everyone. Kevin Hart, known for his humor, charisma, and relentless energy, appeared on the show to promote his new comedy film. But no one, not the audience, not the producers, not even Hart himself, was prepared for what happened next. The View studio buzzed with anticipation. Bright spotlights bathed the stage in warm light, and the live audience, hundreds strong, chattered excitedly, waiting for the guest to appear. The hum of cameras and the clack of assistants' heels backstage created an atmosphere of controlled chaos. At the host's table, Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, and Sarah Haynes, coffee cups sat neatly arranged, their smiles rehearsed but genuine. Today's guest, Kevin Hart, promised a light, fun interview filled with his signature humor. Kevin strode onto the stage to thunderous applause. His wide grin, easy stride, and perfectly tailored navy suit instantly won over the crowd. He waved, cracked a few jokes about his short stature, and the room erupted in laughter. Joy Behar, seated at the table, was already gearing up for the conversation. Her eyes glinted, and her smile carried a faint hint of mischief. "Oh, Kevin, you're always so full of energy," she said, adjusting her glasses. "But don't you ever get tired of putting on this constant show?" The audience laughed, but there was an edge to her words, a suggestion of something more. Kevin sat down, crossing his legs, and immediately took control of the moment. "Joy, I don't get tired because this is my passion," he replied, flashing a wide smile. "Besides, someone's gotta entertain people while you're out here dishing your hot takes." The room laughed again, and Sunny Hostin giggled, covering her mouth. Whoopi Goldberg shook her head, as if sensing the conversation might veer off course. The discussion began with Kevin promoting his new film, a comedy about friendship and family values, already poised to be a hit. He shared stories from the set, recounted funny moments, and even acted out how the director tried to convince him to jump out of a plane for a scene. The audience responded enthusiastically, laughing, clapping, and some even filming on their phones. Joy, however, listened intently, pen poised over her notepad, as if preparing her next move. "Kevin, this movie's about family, right?" she began, her voice soft but laced with a challenge. "You talk a lot about family values, but let's be real. Do you always live up to those principles?" The studio fell silent. The audience, still chuckling moments ago, froze. Sunny Hostin nervously shuffled her papers, and Whoopi raised an eyebrow, glancing quickly at Joy. Kevin, however, kept his cool. His smile didn't waver, but his eyes grew more serious. "Joy, what do you mean by that?" Kevin replied, his tone light but with a trace of tension. "I live for my family. My kids, my wife, they're my world. You're not trying to suggest something else, are you?" He leaned forward, maintaining eye contact with the host. Joy, undeterred, leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Well, Kevin, you know how it is. People see you on screen, big comedian, perfect family man, but then there are rumors. Rumors about parties, about your lifestyle. You're not a saint, are you?" Her words dripped with sarcasm, her smile more a challenge than friendliness. The audience gasped. Some exchanged stunned glances, while others pulled out their phones to record. Sunny Hostin tried to intervene. "Joy, come on, maybe let's stick to the movie?" But her voice was drowned out by the mounting tension. Whoopi Goldberg pursed her lips, clearly uncomfortable but choosing to stay silent for now. Backstage, producers exchanged nervous looks, one whispering into a headset, "This is bad." Kevin, however, didn't lose his composure. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. "Rumors, Joy?" "Seriously?" he said, his voice calm but edged with irritation. "I thought you were better than that. You know how the media works. They take half-truths, add some drama, and sell it as a scoop. But you want to bring that up live? All right, let's talk." The audience erupted in applause. Some shouted words of support, but the tension in the studio grew thicker. Joy, sensing she was losing control, decided to double down. She raised her hand to quiet the crowd and continued. Kevin, I'm just saying, you sell this image of the perfect guy, but can you back it up? People want to know the truth. You're not afraid of the truth, are you? Her voice sharpened, her eyes narrowing. Kevin clenched his fists but quickly relaxed them, placing his hands on the table. His smile was gone, but he remained composed. The truth, Joy, is that I'm human. I make mistakes, like everyone else. But I'm not here to justify myself to you or anyone else. I came to talk about my movie, and you're trying to turn this into a circus. For what? Ratings? The room exploded again, this time with mixed reactions. Some clapped for Kevin, others whispered, unsure whose side to take. Whoopi finally stepped in. Okay, let's take a breather. We all love a good conversation, but maybe we can get back to the film? Her voice was calm, but it was clear she was trying to salvage the situation. Joy, however, seemed oblivious. She leaned forward, ready to deliver her next blow. This moment on The View was only beginning to spiral. What will happen when Kevin Hart faces even more provocative accusations? Will he maintain his dignity, or will Joy Behar have the last word? Share your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned to see how this television history unfolds. The View studio was on the verge of erupting. The tension between Kevin Hart and Joy Behar had reached a boiling point, and the audience, holding their breath, waited for what would happen next. Cameras hummed, operators scrambled to adjust angles, and producers backstage exchanged panicked gestures. Sunny Hostin nervously shuffled her papers. Whoopi Goldberg tried to maintain her composure, but even she couldn't hide the strain in her eyes. Kevin, jaw clenched, awaited Joy's next move. This moment was already cemented in television history, and no one was prepared for what came next. Joy Behar, sensing she was losing the upper hand, decided to go all in. She leaned back in her chair, her smile sharpening. Kevin, you say you're human, and that's great, she began, her voice dripping with sarcasm. But let's talk about your mistakes. Like that scandal with your old tweets. You call those mistakes, or are they just showing who you really are? The audience gasped. Some covered their mouths in shock, while others hurriedly pulled out their phones to record. Kevin's old tweets, which had sparked controversy years ago over insensitive jokes, were a sore subject he had repeatedly apologized for. But Joy clearly wanted to fan the flames, and her words hit their mark. Sunny Hostin tried to intervene. Joy, this is too much, let's Lilliputian we move on from the past. Her voice trembled with tension, but Joy waved her off like swatting a fly. Whoopi Goldberg clenched her fists under the table, her face impassive but her eyes betraying concern. Backstage, a producer whispered into a headset. Get the commercial ready, this is getting out of hand. Kevin, however, remained composed. He leaned forward slowly, his gaze steady but calm. Joy, you really want to go there? He said, his voice quiet but piercing. I apologize for those tweets. I explained I was wrong, that I've learned, grown as a person. But you want to drag that up again for what? To give people a reason to hate? Or just because you need a scoop for the show? The audience erupted in applause, though the reactions were mixed. Some cheered Kevin on, while others whispered, recalling old headlines. Joy, undeterred, pressed on. She raised her hand to quiet the crowd. Kevin, I'm just saying you've built a career on being the good guy, but are you really that guy? People have a right to know if their favorite comedian is who he claims to be. The words landed like a slap. Kevin clenched his fists, his face darkening for a moment, but he quickly regained control. You know, Joy, I'm not perfect, he said, his voice deepening, almost trembling. But I'm real. I don't hide behind a fake mask. I work, I raise my kids, I try to make people happier. And you? You sit here throwing accusations to look honest. Is that honesty, or just a way to tear someone down? The studio fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to stop humming. The audience sat in tense silence, feeling the weight of the moment. Sunny Hostin looked down, visibly uncomfortable, and Whoopi finally spoke. All right, let's all take a breath and... But Kevin raised his hand, stopping her. No, Whoopi, let me say this. he said, his voice firm but not aggressive. He turned to Joy, his eyes blazing with resolve. Joy, I came here to talk about my movie, about joy, about family. But you decided to dig up dirt. You know what makes me different from people like you? I don't use my platform to tear others down. I use it to lift people up. And if you think you can make me look small, you're wrong. He stood slowly, his movements calm but filled with dignity. Life's too short to waste on people who want to drag you down. He continued, addressing the audience now. I'm here to do good, to laugh, to love my family. And if anyone in this room or at home thinks I'm not real, come talk to me. But I'm not sitting here letting myself be torn apart for ratings. The room exploded in applause. Some stood, cheering louder, while others sat in stunned silence, unsure how to react. Joy Behar, clearly unprepared for this turn, tried to save face. Kevin, no one's trying to tear you down, we're just talking, she said, but her voice sounded weaker than before. Kevin shook his head, his smile sad but resolute. Joy, this isn't a conversation. This is a circus. And I'm not a clown. With that, he removed his microphone, placed it on the table, and walked off the stage. The sound of his shoes clicking on the floor echoed in the silence, the only sound breaking the tension. The studio erupted in mixed reactions. Some audience members clapped and shouted support, while others whispered, shocked by the drama. Cameras scrambled to capture Kevin's exit as he disappeared backstage. Producers shouted into headsets in a panic, one of them running past the stage, trying to figure out what to do next. Joy Behar sat at the table, her face a mix of surprise and irritation. She attempted a joke. Well, looks like Kevin doesn't like tough questions. But the joke fell flat, met with scattered murmurs instead of laughter. Whoopi Goldberg took charge, announcing a commercial break, her voice steady but strained. As the cameras panned away, the audience buzzed with excitement and disbelief, already pulling out their phones to post clips online. Within minutes, the moment went viral. Social media platforms exploded with hashtags like hashtag Kevin Hart walks out and hashtag Joy Behar vs. Kevin. Clips of Kevin's speech spread like wildfire, with some praising his dignity and others debating whether Joy had crossed the line. The internet was divided, but one thing was clear: this was a television moment no one would forget. In the days that followed, the confrontation dominated headlines. Entertainment outlets dissected the exchange, with some calling Kevin's exit a powerful stand for authenticity, while others questioned if he overreacted. Joy Behar faced backlash for her approach, though her supporters argued she was just doing her job as a provocative host. Kevin, meanwhile, posted a cryptic message on social media. Keep it real, keep it moving. Love over hate. His fans rallied behind him, and his movie's box office numbers soared, fueled by the publicity. The incident sparked a broader conversation about the role of talk shows in holding celebrities accountable versus exploiting personal controversies for ratings. Kevin's speech, particularly his emphasis on using his platform to lift others up, resonated with many, reinforcing his image as a relatable, principled figure. Joy, on the other hand, faced scrutiny for pushing too far, though she remained unapologetic, claiming her job was to ask tough questions. What do you think about this explosive moment? Was Kevin right to walk out, or did Joy have a point? Share your thoughts in the comments and join the discussion, because this is one television showdown that's far from over.